getting into Wuthering Heights. We realize that trauma is perpetuated by these hierarchical systems of human dignity, that they are conditioned into people through class and social customs, ostracization, a sense of superiority. And this makes it so certain characters are more likely to resist these oppressive systems. Heathcliff is one of them. His beef with the Linton family, with Hindley Earnshaw, the people who did him wrong, makes sense when it shows his disproportionate ill treatment in the story, which is indicative of ill treatment in society at large, not only for him, but of people with darker skin, especially people who are Romani or Black. And that this lack of identity is a way rarely he uses to elevate himself in society. But there's a reason why it's these sort of unknown methods that he attains this power and wealth, because that's not a common thing that people did. There was not a whole lot of class fluidity, class mobility. I was about to say mobilization. I'm like, that's not right. And where did we leave off? Let me see. Okay, so Edgar Linton died. He had his funeral. Heathcliff had all of the servants be dismissed except Nellie, and now he's making Kathy, who just married Linton, to live at Wuthering Heights. Okay. I have paid a visit to the Heights, so Nellie narrating, but I have not seen her since she left. Joseph held the door in his hand when I called to ask after her and wouldn't let me pass. He said Mrs. Linton was thrang. Okay, what does that mean? If I can find the page. Busy is what that means, apparently. And the master was not in. Zillah has told me something of the way they go on. Otherwise, I should hardly know who was dead and who was living. She thinks Catherine haughty, and does not like her. I can guess by her talk. My young lady asked some aid of her when she first came, but Mr. Heathcliff told her to follow her own business and let his daughter-in-law look after herself. And Zillah willingly acquiesced, being a narrow-minded, selfish woman. She's also just doing what her boss asked, so she doesn't have any, sense of loyalty to Catherine. Catherine evinced a child's annoyance at this neglect, repaid it with contempt, and thus enlisted my informant among her enemies, as securely as if she had done her some great wrong. I had a talk with Zillah about 6 weeks ago, a little before you came one day, when we foregathered on the moor, and this is what she told me. The first thing Mrs. Linton did, she said, on her arrival at the Heights, was to run upstairs without even wishing good evening to me and Joseph. She shut herself into Linton's room and remained till morning. Then, while the master and Earnshaw were at breakfast, she entered the house and asked all in a quiver if the doctor might be sent for. Her cousin was very ill. We also see how there are these class distinctions and perspectives of people in lower classes being like, why are you so upset? You don't have to work for a living. What is wrong? You may have to, cook something occasionally or learn how to do something on your own. What is so bad about that? But they also are experiencing, for these people in these upper classes, this kind of pain in a way that they haven't before. So to them, their problems are the worst that they've ever been. And to people who've experienced worse situations and exploitation and oppression are like, what? Why are you so upset? We know that, answered Heathcliff, but his life is not worth a farthing, and I won't spend a farthing on him. But I cannot tell how to do, she said, and if nobody will help me, he'll die. Walk out the room, cried the master. It's harsh. And let me never hear a word more about him. None here care what becomes of him. If you do, act the nurse. If you do not, lock him up and leave him. So we see also the cruelty of Heathcliff extending to neglect with his son, and that it being very intentional, most likely. That he wants the property that Linton came into, and he wants Linton to pass away so that Heathcliff can be the recipient of all of this property. Even though he technically is the one controlling the situation, it will officially make him the owner when Linton passes away. Then she began to bother me, and I said I'd had enough plague with the tiresome thing. We each had our tasks, and hers was to wait on Linton. Mr. Heathcliff bid me leave that labor to her. How they managed together I can't tell. I fancy he fretted a great deal and moaned his self night and day. It's spelled his seln. And she had precious little rest. One could guess by her white face and heavy eyes. She sometimes came into the kitchen all wildered like, and looked as if she would fain beg assistance. But I was not going to disobey the master. I never dared disobey him, Mrs. Dean, and though I thought it wrong that Kenneth should not be sent for, it was no concern of mine, either to advise or complain, and I always refused to meddle. Once or twice, after we had gone to bed, I've happened to open my door again and seen her sitting crying on the stairs top. Stairs top. Okay, so like on top of the stairs. And then I've shut myself in quick for fear of being moved to interfere. I did pity her then, I'm sure. Still, I didn't wish to lose my place, you know. And Zillah is expecting Nellie to be more compassionate to her version of the story because they come from the same class. And we'll see Nellie get upset because Nellie cares about Catherine and feels like she deserves to be treated in ways that are indicative of her class. At last, one night she came boldly into my chamber and frightened me out of my wits by saying, "Tell Mr. Heathcliff that his son is dying. I'm sure he is this time. Get up instantly and tell him." Having uttered this speech, she vanished again. I lay a quarter of an hour listening and trembling. Nothing stirred. The house was quiet. "She's mistaken," I said to myself. "He's got over it. I needn't disturb them." And I began to doze. But my sleep was marred a second time by a sharp ringing of the bell, the only bell we have put up on purpose for Linton. And the master called to me to see what was the matter, and informed them that he wouldn't have that noise repeated. I delivered Catherine's message. He cursed to himself, and in a few minutes came out with a lighted candle and proceeded to their room. I followed Mr. Heathcliff, and was seated by the bedside. I followed. Mrs. Heathcliff was seated by the bedside, with her hands folded on her knees. Her father-in-law went up, held the light to Linton's face, looked at him, and touched him. Afterwards he turned to her. "Now, Catherine," he said, "how do you feel?" She was dumb. "How do you feel, Catherine?" he repeated. "He is safe, and I'm free," she answered. "I should feel well, but," she continued with a bitterness she couldn't conceal, "you have left me so long to struggle against death alone, that I feel and see only death. I feel like death." And she looked like it too. I gave her a little wine. Hareton and Joseph, who had been wakened by the ringing and the sound of feet and heard our talk from outside, now entered. Joseph was fain, I believe, of the lad's removal. Fain, meaning glad. Sad. Hareton seemed a thought bothered, though he was more taken up with staring at Catherine than thinking of Linton, because Hareton is in love with Catherine, from what we have been able to observe. But the master bid him get off to bed again. We didn't want his help. He afterwards made Joseph remove the body to his chamber. Okay, so he did pass away officially. And she's saying that he's safe, meaning he doesn't have to be abused anymore and suffer, and that she's free, meaning from marriage. Okay. He afterwards made Joseph remove the body to his chamber and told me to return to mine, and Mrs. Heathcliff remained by herself. So we don't know if this death could have been prevented, and that's part of the tragedy of it. In the morning, he sent me to tell her she must come down to breakfast. She had undressed and appeared going to sleep, and said she was ill, at which I hardly wondered. I informed Mr. Heathcliff, and he replied, "Well, let her be till after the funeral, and go up now and then get her what is needful, and as soon as she seems better, tell me." Kathy stayed upstairs a fortnight, according to Zillah, who visited her twice a day and would have been rather more friendly, but her attempts at increasing kindness were proudly and promptly repelled. Heathcliff went up once to show her Linton's will. He had bequeathed the whole of his and what had been her movable property to his father. The poor creature was threatened or coaxed into that act during her week's absence when his uncle died. "Hi, buddy. The nightly meow. Hi. How was your dinner? Good to see you." Does his little stretch. There he is. Huh. How was your dinner? Okay, I have to give him a quick pet. Huh. You look like you're trying to lure me out. What is it? Huh. You're very cute. Okay, fine. Oh, I see the other one. She's gonna be jealous that he's in here. Huh. What's gonna happen? Hi, Teeny. Hi. You can't see her. She came up, though. He's just rolling around. Okay, I do need to finish reading. I'll get back to it. Okay, fine. Just get distracted by cuteness. It works on me every time. I'll admit it. Okay. The poor creature was threatened or coaxed into that act during her week's absence when his uncle died, meaning Linton was threatened into giving his dad all of the property. The lands being a minor he could not meddle with. However, Mr. Heathcliff has claimed and kept them in his wife's right. And his also, I suppose legally at any rate. Catherine, destitute of cash and friends, cannot disturb his possession. "Nobody," said Zillah, "ever approached her door, except that once, but I... Okay, ... And nobody asked anything about her. The first occasion of her coming down into the house was that on a Sunday afternoon. She had cried out when I carried up her dinner that she couldn't bear any longer being in the cold, and I told her the master was going to Thrushcross Grange, and Earnshaw and I needn't hinder her from descending, So, as soon as she heard Heathcliff's horse trot off, she made her appearance, donned in black, and her yellow curls combed back behind her ears as plain as a Quaker. She couldn't comb them out. Joseph and I generally go to the chapel on Sundays. The kirk, has no minister now, explained Mrs. Dean, and they called the Methodist or Baptist place, I can't say which it is at Gimmerton, a chapel. Joseph had gone, she continued, but I thought proper to bide at home. Young folks are always the better for an elder's overlooking, and Hareton, with all his bashfulness, isn't a model of nice behavior. I let him know that his cousin would be very likely to sit with us, and she had always been used to see the Sabbath respected, so he had as good leave his guns and bits of indoor work alone while she stayed, and he's going to be very excited about that since he has feelings for Catherine. Or maybe he's going to be extra angry because he cares about her and can't do anything about it. Excuse me. Okay. He colored up at the news and cast his eyes over his hands and clothes. The train oil and gunpowder were shoved out of sight in a minute. I saw he meant to give her his company, and I guessed by his way he wanted to be presentable. So laughing, as I durst not laugh when the master is by, I offered to help him if he would, and joked at his confusion. He grew sullen and began to swear, calling him out for caring about his appearance. Now, Mrs. Dean, she went on, seeing me not pleased by her manner, you happen to think your young lady too fine for Mr. Hareton, and happen you're right. But I own I should love well to bring her pride a peg lower. And what will all her learning and her daintiness do her for now? She's as poor as you, or I. Poorer, I'll be bound. You're saving, and I'm doing my little all that road. So this is a really interesting commentary on society, this little note. By saying that Catherine, even though she technically is in a privileged class and has received all of this tutoring and training to be a lady of this class, that she technically doesn't own anything. She doesn't have any money, and that Heathcliff is ensuring her oppression and that she doesn't have resources. So this is deeply problematic, but we see how women are oppressed in this way. Okay. Hareton allowed Zillah to give him her aid, and she flattered him into a good humor, so when Catherine came, half forgetting her former insults, he tried to make himself agreeable by the housekeeper's account. Mrs. walked in, she said, as chill as an icicle, and as high as a princess. I got up and offered her my seat in the armchair. No, she turned up her nose at my civility. Earnshaw rose too, and bid her come to the settle, and sit close by the fire. He was sure she was starved. I've been starved for a month and more, she answered, resting on the word as scornful as she could. And she got a chair for herself and placed it at a distance from both of us. Having sat till she was warm, she began to look round, and discovered a number of books in the dresser. She was instantly upon her feet again, stretching to reach them, but they were too high up. Her cousin, after watching her endeavors a while, at last summoned courage to help her. She held her frock, and he filled it with the first that came to hand. That was a great advance for the lad. She didn't thank him. Still, he felt gratified that she had accepted his assistance, and ventured to stand behind as she examined them, and even to stoop and point out what struck his fancy in certain old pictures which they contained. Nor was he daunted by the saucy style in which she jerked the page from his finger. He contented himself with going a bit farther back and looking at her instead of the book. She continued reading, or seeking for something to read. His attention became, by degrees, quite centered in the study of her thick, silky curls. She's just observing all of this while he's just staring at her very openly. Her face he couldn't see, and she couldn't see him, and perhaps not quite awake to what he did, but attracted like a child to a candle at last, he proceeded from staring to touching. Oh boy. He put out his hand and stroked one curl as gently as if it were a bird. He might have stuck a knife into her neck. She started round in such a taking. "Get away this moment! How dare you touch me? Why are you stopping there?" she cried in a tone of disgust. I can't endure you. I'll go upstairs again if you come near me." Mr. Hareton recoiled, looking as foolish as he could do. He sat in the settle very quiet, and she continued turning over her volumes another half hour. Finally, Earnshaw crossed over and whispered to me, "Will you ask her to read to us, Zillah? I'm stalled of doing naught, and I could like to hear her. Dunnot say I wanted it, but ask yourself." Okay, a footnote. Stalled of, meaning tired of. He's tired of doing nothing. "Mr. Hareton wishes you to read to us, ma'am," I said immediately, her just immediately outing him. "Hi, Dini. Come here." "Good to see you. Come on." We'll see if she comes up. "Mr. Hareton and the whole set of you will be good enough to understand that I reject any pretense at kindness you have the hypocrisy to offer. I despise you, and will have nothing to say to any of you. When I would have given my life for one kind word, even to see one of your faces, you all kept off. But I won't complain to you. I'm driven down here by the cold, not either to amuse you or enjoy your society." "What could I have done?" began Earnshaw. "How was I to blame?" "Oh, you are an exception," answered Mrs. Heathcliff. "I never missed such a concern as you." That's rude. She's like, "Oh, I didn't even think about you." "But I offered more than once, and asked," he said, kindling up at her pertness. "I asked Mr. Heathcliff to let me wake up for you." "Be silent! I'll go out of doors, or anywhere, rather than have your disagreeable voice in my ear," said my lady. Hareton muttered she might go to hell for him, and unslinging his gun, restrained himself from his Sunday occupations no longer. He talked now, freely enough, and she presently saw fit to retreat to her solitude. But the frost had set in, and in spite of her pride, she was forced to condescend to our company more and more. However, I took care that there should be no further scorning at my good nature. Ever since, I've been as stiff as herself, and she has no lover or liker among us, and she does not deserve one. For let them say the least word to her, and she'll curl back without respect of anyone. She'll snap at the master himself, and as good as dares him to thrash her, and the more hurt she gets, the more venomous she grows. At first, on hearing this account from Zillah, I determined to leave my situation, take a cottage, and get Catherine to come and live with me. But Mr. Heathcliff would soon permit that, as he would set up Hareton in an independent house. And I can see no remedy at present, unless she should marry again. And that scheme it does not come within my province to arrange. So she is trying to save Catherine by having her marry Mr. Lockwood. That's what this is setting it up for. Thus ended Mrs. Dean's story, so back to Lockwood's perspective. Notwithstanding the doctor's prophecy, I'm rapidly recovering strength, and though it be only the second week in January, I propose getting out on horseback in a day or two, and riding over to Wuthering Heights, to inform my landlord that I shall spend the next 6 months in London, and if he likes, he may look out for another tenant to take the place after October. I would not pass another winter here for much. Okay. So we get the final part of the story of Catherine being at Wuthering Heights, and it seems that she has turned to magic in order to free herself of this situation, that she does not have many friends or allies or points of recourse for her situation, and that she has turned to the magical arts to free herself from this. It will be interesting to see how that plays more of a role as we catch up to the modern day, if that plays a role. Keep having the hiccups. Anyway, that's going to be it for me today. But tomorrow, I wanted to continue talking about resisting the fascist violence that is going on in the world, in the country, highlight some more trans issues, but then also talk about trans healthcare. And I have a friend who works at AIDS United who made a really excellent training for healthcare workers. So I wanted to go through that training just on the stream. And it may take a couple of streams to go through it, which I'm happy to do. It is excellent, and I have a really cool friend. I'm very proud of them and the work that they're doing, so we'll go over that. And it is also Banned Book Club, and we're reading to chapter 14. The chapters are a little bit longer in this one, so reading 12 and 13. Okay, that's it for me. Thank you for being here. It was good chatting with you. I hope you have a good rest of your day, evening, wherever you are, and I will see you soon. Okay, bye.